Hi everybody, my name is Madison Heemstra and today I will be presenting my master's project where we virtually delivered a lifestyle medicine program integrating wearable technology and exercise prescriptions for patients with type 2 diabetes, and it was a feasibility study. So a little bit of background for you. We've seen that remotely delivered diabetes self-management education programs have previously shown promise in a population with type 2 diabetes. This can be used with wearable or without wearable technologies. So we've seen that in this population specifically, wearables have been linked to increased healthy behaviors such as increased glycemic monitoring adherence or increased physical activity. While we were designing this project, COVID came about, and as the world rapidly pivoted to virtual care and especially increasing video conferencing usage, we thought this would be a great opportunity for testing some real life scenarios. So the objective of this study was to assess the feasibility of delivering a virtual group-based lifestyle medicine intervention that includes both wearable technologies, specifically continuous glucose monitors, or we used the Freestyle Libres, and wearable activity monitors, we used Fitbit Inspire 2s. As well, we also included individualized exercise prescriptions in an outpatient clinic for an adult population with type 2 diabetes. Today, we're going to cover the primary outcomes of the study, but for the purpose of today, we're not going to be covering some secondary health outcomes that we also did cover, such as glycemic variables and change in step counts. So first, we looked at recruitment rates. We looked at retention levels at follow-up. We also looked at intervention adherence, which were measured by a couple different things. So we looked at proportion of those attending our biweekly education classes and one-on-one phone call check-ins, as well as the number of timely Fitbit data submissions. We also looked at Fitbit wear time or wear compliance and the average active time of the Freestyle Libre, so how often people were scanning and capturing their glucose data. We also looked at intervention acceptability, which was measured by exit survey feedback and the mean number of technology issues per person. So talking about methodology, we conducted a 6-week single-arm cohort feasibility study. We followed the phase 1 and specifically phase 1B of the Orbit model for developing behavioral treatments for chronic diseases, which just essentially follows a feasibility type of protocol that allows for some flexibility and adaptation to the protocol as needed. We conducted this study through a diabetes specializing outpatient clinic in London, Ontario. And we sought to recruit an adult population with type 2 diabetes. Here's just a screenshot of the inclusion-exclusion criteria. To highlight a few, we were looking for new patient intakes at the clinic we ran it through. They needed to be over the age of 18 years, previously diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, physician cleared to exercise with no contraindications to exercise or participation in group settings, as well as they needed to have some baseline technology requirements in order to participate in a completely virtual setting. Our study timeline, we started off with recruitment. So we did this at the end of a 1-hour general lifestyle medicine class that's offered to new patient intakes at the clinic we were running the study through. So we pitched that at the end of that specific class. Those who were interested were contacted, and we ran over the letter of information, and once given consent, we ran through 4 of our baseline questionnaires. About 1 week after that consent call, we had participants do the technology orientation class, and due to varying restrictions with the pandemic, we had 7 people attend in class and 3 people attend completely virtual. At this time, participants were picking up their Fitbit, their Libres, and their study packages, either before if they were doing the virtual class or in class as if they were at the clinic. Immediately after, they followed a 2-week baseline where we collected glucose and step count data, followed immediately by a 6-week intervention, which we'll discuss in a second. And then 1 week following that intervention, we had our follow-up where we went over 2 of the questionnaires covered at baseline and our exit survey. So the intervention was multi-componented. So it was grounded in the self-determination theory, which is a global theory of motivation. We looked to target specifically psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. We also provided participants with the Fitbit Inspire 2 to use and freestyle libres over the course of the 8 weeks of measurement. We had participants attend bi-weekly group education classes via the WebEx video platform. At the same time, within a day of that class, we also provided participants updated bi-weekly exercise step count prescriptions that were individualized to them. On the off weeks of the classes, participants attended bi-weekly one-on-one exercise specialist counseling on the phone. Looking at the results of the study, just another key snapshot here of the sample. We recruited 10 participants, over 60% were female, and the age ranged from 36 to 73, so a mean age of 50 with a standard deviation of 15. We had a mean A1C of 9.8 with a standard deviation of 3.1%, which is a relatively high baseline A1C. We also did include those on insulin and those not on insulin, but oral hyperglycemic agents only. In terms of recruitment and retention, of the 35 that attended the 1-hour lifestyle medicine class, 10 were ultimately recruited, giving us a 29% recruitment rate. From recruitment to follow-up, we retained 8 out of the 10 people who participated, giving us an 80% retention rate. Intervention adherence, we had relatively good attendance for our group classes and our one-on-one exercise specialist calls with an 83% and a 92.5% attendance rate respectively. We also had relatively high wear compliance for our Fitbit at 94%, and we captured 78.8 with a standard deviation of 19.2% of our total Freestyle Libre data captured, which just essentially required participants to be scanning their glucose monitor once every 8 hours to capture that 8-hour period. Unfortunately, we did have some subpar timely Fitbit submissions at 53%. However, it is worth noting that we still did receive 98% of all of the Fitbit files from participants by the end of the study. In terms of intervention acceptability, we had about 3.2 technology issues per person. Most of these were related to difficulty sending data in, and that data was more related to study-related data not required for exercise prescriptions. Overall, there was also a high percentage of participant acceptability of the study, so 89% of them agreed that they were overall satisfied with the program. In terms of conclusive thoughts here, so some highlights overall, we did find the study to be feasible and well accepted by participants. Notably, we did have a very high feasibility for data collection. In terms of areas of improvement, we did identify some key areas for when we move forward with a larger study. So we did have low recruitment rates, which could have been linked to a low referral to the group 1-hour lifestyle medicine class. As well as we did have a smaller sample size, which was limited due to the time constraints of my master's. We also had, again, most issues related to study-related data transfer. Other than that, relatively, we had low technology rates per person. So essentially, we ended up changing the protocol in order to increase the ease for participants, though some still chose to stick with the original method. We also needed to increase our group cohesion opportunities, which could be done with a couple of things identified in the exit survey, such as increasing the available material in advance to increase participant familiarization with the content. We needed to implement better muting capabilities for facilitators and avoid rolling intake if possible. And in terms of implications, this was one of the first studies to deliver a virtual group-based diabetes lifestyle intervention that uses wearables and exercise prescriptions in type 2 diabetes population. So this is just valuable as we move forward to increase accessibility to those who need it the most, whether it's time convenience or location. We did identify some sample size power calculations needed and some key refinements to move forward for setting up the stage for a pilot RCT, testing the impact between virtual and in-person deliveries. This project was done in collaboration with St. Joe's and Western, and yeah, I'd just like to thank the entire team for all of their work. Thanks.